Hi guys. So today we're going to talk about natural cellulosic fibers. We've already learned about fiber properties, and now we're going to talk about each fiber. I showed you this list. So we said there are natural fibers, there are manufactured fibers. We're going to start with the natural fibers that are cellulosic. So when you hear the word cellulosic, that means the fibers are plant-based. They come from plants. Some fibers come from the seed of the plant, like cotton, kapok, milkweed. Some fibers come from the stem of the plant. Those we call bast fibers, and those are fibers like flax, rami, hemp, jute. Flax is the fiber that we use for linen fabrics. So when it's in fiber form, we call it flax. When it's in fabric or yarn form, we call it linen. And then some cellulosic fibers that are natural, of course, come from the leaf of the plant, and those are sisal, abaca, pina, raffia. Those are also cellulosic fibers that we use in different applications. Probably cotton is the most commonly used fiber in the world. We use cotton a lot for so many different things, so many different applications. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about the general properties of cellulosic fibers, because they're all plant-based. They all have similar properties because of their nature. So we're going to first talk about those, and then we'll learn more about cotton. This is a cotton ball, and this is how it looks like when it is mature and it's ready to harvest. This is a flax fiber, and you can see how stiff it is compared to cotton. This is unbleached, so it is the raw form of flax. Now, for all the cellulosic fibers, the main component is cellulose. Cellulose is made out of polymerization of glucose. So glucose is the primary unit that you can see in the circle, and you just repeat that unit in the polymer and you get cellulose. So all plant-based fibers, all plant-based natural cellulosic fibers come from cellulose, and the main unit of that long chain of molecule is glucose. And I want you guys to pay attention to these OH groups here. We call them the hydroxyl groups. You might have learned that in your chemistry class. So the hydroxyl groups are important because when you see them on the outside, that usually means that these type of fibers absorb moisture, absorb water, because those hydroxyl groups will react with H2O. And they also pick up dyes really well. So when you dye the fabric, it will absorb the dyes also. Now, because of the chemistry, because the chemical structure is more or less the same for all cellulosic fibers, their properties are also very similar. So they're all absorbent hydrophilic fibers. They love water, they absorb water. They're good conductors of heat. They are heat resistant. That means you can wash them in the laundry machine at high temperatures, you can iron them at high temperatures, and they're not going to be easily damaged by heat. They have low resiliency and low loft. So if you guys remember this from our previous lecture, that means they do wrinkle a lot. So when you crush them or bunch them up, they will definitely wrinkle easily. They're good conductors of electricity, which means when you wear cotton, you never would feel static. They are heavy fibers. They're sensitive to mineral acids. So what that means is that, for example, orange juice, lemon juice, these are acidic. If you spill those on your cotton fabrics and leave it like that, it will eventually damage the fibers and weaken the fibers or maybe break them up. If it is concentrated acids, like sulfuric acid or any other acid that you spill on your cotton shirt, it will definitely damage your cotton shirt. So they're sensitive to acids, but they're resistant to alkalis, which are the soaps and detergents that we use to wash them. They are resistant to some insects, like moths don't like cotton, so they don't get damaged by moths, but they are damaged by this insect called silverfish. And they're also damaged by mildew and mold. So what that means is when you store your cotton products, you want to keep them in a dry environment. They keep it away from mold. Cellulosic fibers are flammable, which means they ignite very quickly, they catch the flame, and then they burn. So if you think about paper, for example, paper is made out of wood, it's a plant. So paper catches flame really quickly. Cotton and all other cellulosic fibers are the same way. They're plant-based, they catch flame almost like paper, and they actually smell like burnt paper when you burn them. They are moderately resistant to sunlight, but over long sunlight exposure is going to weaken them a little bit. Oh, they are very comfortable to wear in the summer because of the absorbency, because it's hydrophilic and it takes the moisture away from your body and makes you feel comfortable. Now, cotton is the most widely used fiber in the cellulosic fiber category and in all categories in general. And when we define cotton, we define it based on its grade. Grade of cotton means the quality of cotton, basically. And we categorize cotton for different grades based on its length, color, cleanliness, fineness, and strength. So the longer the fibers are, the better. The whiter the color is, the better. The finer the fibers are, the better, and the stronger is better. This is a raw cotton fabric. You can see there are some brown spots there, and those may be caused by rain or other conditions that affect the plant in the field. This is a brown cotton that's naturally colored. This isn't the natural color that it comes with. When we look at the fiber morphology, we talked about the kidney shape. You guys said it looks more like a baby. So yeah, it does look a little bit like that in the cross section. And when you analyze it, there is this central canal that is called the lumen, and there are those outer cells. And then when you look at the surface, it actually looks more like a ribbon that has convolution. So this is the actual fiber cross-section that you can see. This is 500 times magnified in a scanning electron microscope. So you can see the cross-sections that look kind of like kidney shape. And when you look at the length of the fiber, you can see that twisted ribbon-like structure, the convolutions. And those convolutions give you that kind of cross-section. So cotton is generally not very lustrous. They are dull fabrics, fibers, and they're usually off-white. So if you want to color them, you need to bleach them first and then color them, unless they come in those natural brownish colors. So these are a couple natural colors that you may see cotton, usually off-white, beige, or brownish colors. And this is how long it takes to grow cotton. So once you plant the seed, it takes about 25 weeks for the cotton to be ready to harvest. It is 99% cellulose. It has a high degree of polymerization, which means the molecular chain is pretty long. I talked about the hydroxyl units that the molecule has, so that helps with absorption and picking up dyes. We talked about sensitivity to acids. It's also sensitive to bleaches. We can also modify them a little bit with different chemical finishes. So, for example, mercerization is a process where we try to get a little bit more luster on cotton, and we usually do a finish with sodium hydroxide for this. Ammoniation is another finish that we can do for cotton. These are some terms that we use in the world of cotton. So grade is basically the quality, but it is determined by the color of cotton, by the absence of dirt, seed particles, leaf, naps. And naps are the tangles of fibers. You know, the less tangled up fibers you have on cotton, the better the grade or the better quality it will be. And we usually grade them with, like, there are terms we use, like low middling cotton, for example. And if we say strict low middling cotton, that means a grade that is better than low middling cotton. So those are those interesting terms that are used in cotton. Character of cotton means the maturity, smoothness, the uniformity of the fibers. And we also use this term micronair. This can be measured. You can get a number for the micronair of the fiber, and that's basically about the fineness and maturity of the fiber. Cotton is a staple fiber because it's short fibers. They're not very long. The short ones are generally a little bit smaller than a quarter of an inch short, and the longest ones are slightly more than 1.38 inches long. So they don't go like 2-3 inches. They're generally short fibers, and if they're extra long, we have a name for them. So the extra long staple Egyptian cotton is called Pima cotton or Supima cotton. And if you see that on the label, if it says Pima cotton, that usually means it's a better quality cotton. And that also makes your garments a little bit softer and nicer to the touch. I did talk about mercerization. This is a way to give some luster to cotton fabrics. Here's a summary of all the properties that I already mentioned. An interesting fact, cotton and linen are much stronger when they're wet. So when they're in the washing machine, you're washing them, they're actually stronger. It's harder to break them when they're wet. And this is an interesting property they have. They have low elongation, low elastic recovery or elasticity. They're not very elastic. And they wrinkle a lot. They have low resiliency. They are hydrophilic. Let's talk about some of the aesthetic properties of cotton. So again, they are dull. They're generally off-white, but they can be easily dyed, and we usually bleach them and then dye them to get nice colors. They're usually stiff fibers. Most cellulosic fibers are pretty stiff, so they don't have a lot of drape. They are opaque. They're not transparent. We can mercerize them to give a little bit more luster to them. So you can see these two cotton yarns are a little more dull. The yellow one is mercerized cotton. These are different levels of drape. These are all cotton fabrics, but depending on the yarn diameter, the way you reel them, it will have different levels of drape. Generally, they are considered stiffer fibers. Low wrinkle resistance, low crush resistance, low dimensional stability because they do shrink when you put them in the washing machine. They have low elastic recovery. They have good absorption properties. They are hydrophilic. When you stretch them, they don't go back to their original length, so they have low elasticity. They also don't elongate much, so they have low elongation. No static buildup because they are conductive, but it's also because they are hydrophilic. So hydrophilic fibers generally don't build static, and that's because they pick up moisture from the environment also, so they're not completely dry. When you have something super dry, like a polyester fabric, for example, that doesn't pick up moisture or absorb water, then you will feel more static. They're not skin irritants. They do not cause any allergic reactions. They have low resistance to abrasion, so they do get damaged a little bit. This is a cotton shirt. You can see the neck that got damaged by rubbing against the neck. So the yarns are starting to weaken up and break. So their abrasion resistance is not very good. This is a cotton towel that's abraded over time. being brushed against the towel rack. In terms of cleaning, again, it's the easiest thing to clean. You can wash it in the washing machine. You can use high temperatures. You can use any kind of soap, detergent, and none of those affected. If you iron it, you can use high temperatures to get rid of the wrinkles. They're not damaged by dry cleaning agents or organic solvents. And when you store them, that's the one thing you have to watch. You have to keep them in a dry environment. You can't put them in the basement where there's some mold, because there will be silverfish eating it up. There will be mold and mildew damaging the fabric. Now, there are different categories of cotton when we talk about being eco-friendly, because in the textile industry, we use so much water, we use a lot of chemicals, and a lot of those are dumped into the environment eventually. So none of those are good for the environment. So we do cause some damage. So in recent years, organic cotton became pretty popular. But to consider cotton organic, you have to make sure that it is grown with no pesticides, no herbicides, no fertilizers for at least 3 years. If you haven't completed the 3-year period, because within 3 years, there will still be some of those chemicals in the soil. So once you have it for 3 years, then after that, you can consider it organic. So during that period, we call it transition cotton, because it's transitioning to become more organic. Naturally colored cotton is not organic cotton. It's just colored naturally. It's just natural colors that it comes with. It's eco-friendly because we're not using bleach. We're not using hard chemicals to dye them or synthetic dyes. And green cotton is when we have cotton and we're not using any of those chemicals, harsh detergents, synthetic dyes, then we are being a little more environmentally friendly. Again, green cotton is not organic, but it is produced without using all these harmful chemicals. This is an example of an organic cotton fabric. This is a naturally colored cotton fabric. So you can see here the fabric, and this is the magnified view. This is a naturally colored Egyptian cotton, which is the long staple, good quality Pima cotton. This is a green cotton. And you can see green cotton is not as vibrant in color generally because of the way that they process them. They don't use all these synthetic dyes that will give you beautiful colors, but they are friendly to the environment. How do we identify cotton fibers? For example, you have a fabric, you don't know if it is cotton or not. So one thing you can do is you can take out the fibers, put it in the microscope, and you can't use the microscopes that we're using. It has to be a scanning electron microscope to be able to see the actual morphology of fiber. So if you see the convolutions, if you see that kidney shape in the cross section, you can kind of tell it's cotton. Another way to identify cotton is to burn it. And it burns like paper. It will ignite right away. And even when you take the flame away, it will continue burning. It will turn into ashes, and it will smell like paper burning. But of course, most cellulosic fibers react the same way to flame. So you can't just identify cotton just by burning it, because it could be cotton, it could be linen, it could be any other cellulosic fiber, because they all smell the same and they all burn the same, pretty much. Cotton is soluble in mineral acids. So if you put acid on cotton, it will eventually dissolve. So that's another way you can identify cotton. And also you can compare fiber lengths, because it's a staple cotton. They don't go very long. So if you see like a 5-inch fiber, it's probably not cotton. These are other seed fibers other than cotton that are cellulosic and come from the seed of the plant. Like wire, that's from the coconut tree. This has good abrasion, weather resistance. It's durable, but these are pretty stiff fibers, so we only use them on mats, rugs, floor tiles, brushes, and things like that. Kapok and milkweed, those are fibers that are also stiff, and they're very hard to spin, but we use them as fiber fill, like as a filling for products. So they have different properties. Kapok is lightweight. It has those hollow morphology. Milkweed is soft and lustrous. But again, we only use them as fiber fill. These are some examples of other cellulosic fibers. You can see that they are pretty stiff, and some of those are very hard to spin into a yarn. Okay, so this is what we have on my lecture slides. If you go to your iTextiles and you go to your cellulosic fibers view, you can also see some nice pictures. So in this picture, you can see the trash content in cotton. This is the cleanest one, so you don't see any dirt particles or anything. So cotton goes through a lot of those cleaning processes to get rid of all of these little pieces. This is an example of a short staple and an extra long staple cotton. And we use them in apparel a lot. Cotton is used in t-shirts and pajamas and casual shirts, dress shirts, sometimes sweaters, socks, sleepwear. And we also use them in interiors like draperies, upholstery, bedspreads, rugs, mats, carpeting. We use them also in institutional textiles, household textiles, like bed linens, comforters, table linens, shower curtains, dishcloths, mops, and also in technical applications like cotton balls, hygiene products. This is another, I think I showed you this picture before. This is the mildew damage on cotton. And if cotton is certified as organic, you usually see certified organic signs or marks on them. This is a green cotton. Of course, green cotton doesn't have any certification, so you really never know if it is really green cotton or not. People can claim it's green cotton, and you can probably tell by looking at it. Okay, so this is all I have for cotton today. In our next lecture, we're going to start talking about flax.